sure you got my work. Talk to me.
Every week we always have good music. Welcome to Real Talk Radio with your host, Joe Carlin, congressional candidate for California's 43rd District. This is our third episode, and I think we've been having some pretty good episodes. We've been talking about some real issues that we have in California, issues across the United States. And right now, I have sitting with me very, very special guest of mine. He's a scientist, and he's a part of Los Angeles 64th Central Committee for the Democratic Party. And I think he has an announcement to be making later on, maybe. We'll see what happens. But this gentleman is someone who's been involved in the community for a very long time, and someone that a lot of people look up to. And his name is Mr. James Hayes. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you on the show. We have a very interesting topic to talk about today, and I think this is something that's important not just to Democrats but Republicans, as well as people who do not get involved in politics. This issue is homelessness. Right now, everyone knows that Los Angeles has one of the biggest population of homelessness across the United States, and California is teeter-tottering along the lines of number one and number three, depending on how terrible our governors are doing with managing the availability of jobs, the availability of housing, and availability of a better quality of life. So we're going to get into some issues today, but I want to know a little bit about Mr. James Hayes. So if you will, go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, because I'm excited about this.
My pleasure. I'm a native of the city of Compton, raised in Compton, California. Someone who's been active in Compton area politics actually since I was about 16 years old. When I was 16, my dad took it upon himself to introduce me to the mayor and council members. He made sure that I had a council meeting for Tuesday nights. So since I was 16, I've actually been involved in the political process and the government process in the city of Compton. And I did that all through grade school, through college, through graduate school. I continued to be active. Even when I moved away from Compton, I stayed active in Compton politics. So a few years back, my wife and I, she's also a part of it.
Nice.
We moved back to Compton 4 years ago, and 4 years ago I ran for mayor of the city of Compton. So since then I've been very active, continuously active in the Democratic Party here in Los Angeles, 64th Assembly District, and just trying to serve my community. That's what I'm always doing.
That's wonderful. That's what I like to hear. So how did you become a scientist?
Well, in college, of course, being interested as a youngster in the sciences, going to college and studying biological sciences, and deciding that I wanted to go into what's called biomedical sciences. So I went to work for biologics companies that did work with blood, tissue, organ transplantation, and what have you. And actually, that experience took me to the point where I actually developed a way to activate platelets, a formula for activating platelets, which is used pretty much across the country now. So I have that patent as well as another one dealing with the same sciences, and I just continue to do research and develop new products.
Good. So, and also I read your bio, and then I looked you up. I see that you're the CEO of owner of a company.
Yeah, I started a company, actually it's my second company. I started one company maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and we sold that company. Rolled into another company called Plasma Solutions, Inc.
Yeah.
And we develop treatments and therapies for orthopedic injuries.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate you telling our audience about you. When we come back, we're going to dive right into the topic at hand. We're going to be talking about homeless. You guys stay tuned. We got James Hayes here, Joe Collins, congressional candidate, California's 43rd District. I'll see you guys in a minute.
Beautiful.
How's his sound?
It's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I just went ahead and beat some buttons.
I just wonder if you...
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was saying 1 minute. Because sometimes you were talking, you don't even know, so I just sometimes.
Can you can hear me in the mic though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is about to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation in some instances.
Yeah.
If you really pay attention to it over the years to see how it developed, it's just an interesting situation. And like you said, I completely agree. Government let it completely get out of control. California is the worst because it was allowed to get out of control.
So James, just try to remember, I know sometimes just remember talking to the mic. I'm gonna raise your level up some more. But just,
I tend to drift away from that every
no,
time.
it's natural, it happens to all of us,
Yeah.
man, trust me.
Try and eat it. Eat the mic. Eat the mic.
Our music is always good with
It's
the show.
good. I like it.
Yeah. So if you had to come to the show for one thing, the music would probably be it. Because everybody asks, hey, who made that music? And you know, a really good friend of mine who served in the military, we actually made a company and they create beats. Her and her husband, Cody's create beats, and I'm really excited about them. But let's get controversial. Joe Collins, you are a Republican and you have a Democrat on your show. Why do you have a Democrat on a Republican show? Is this a Republican show or not? Because I don't think it is. I think this is the show for the people. But the reason why I have a Democrat on my show is because I don't think that homelessness is an issue specific to any political party. Now, my thing is, I believe in California that the policies of the Democratic Party has destroyed the communities, the black communities, especially black and brown communities. Now, you've been a Democrat. I want to know how you feel about.
I feel that we can do a better job. You say that the Democratic Party has failed our people to be doing. I say the Democratic Party can do a better job of serving our communities. Because I think the effort is there.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing the end result that we need to see.
Yeah.
So the party in control in California right now, which happens to be the Democratic Party, we have to do a better job of dealing with this homelessness issue.
Okay. So when I do my research, I know that ACLU sued the city of sued California, the state of California, to allow homeless people to be able to live on the streets without any type of repercussions. You know, so when that happened, they also closed the majority of the mental health facilities because they wanted people. I don't know who came with this idea because it's definitely repugnant to the Constitution to allow people who are not mentally stable to make decisions for themselves.
But I think that's a big part of the problem, and also it's not so easy to identify folks who are not mentally capable of making those decisions. I think when you drive through the cities and you look at the homeless population, you just can't point that guy out and say that guy used to be institutionalized or that guy was let out of an institution. So part of the problem, we saw it last year when they attempted to do a homeless census. You can't count. You can't count everyone. You can't keep track of everyone.
So what is your definition of homelessness? Because if you can't count people who are actually on the streets 24/7, whether they have a mental illness or they just can't afford housing, how can you honestly count homeless?
Well, you can't, and it's my position, and that you can't honestly count it. You can make a good faith effort to identify folks who are homeless, but because these homeless folks are predominantly on the move, okay. It's like no one's setting up home. Very few of them are actually setting up a home site and establishing an address.
Yeah.
Okay, those folks you can count, but the majority are moving around, and so you can never get an adequate count. And again, the big problem, as I see it, is we don't know enough about our homeless population individually.
So in January 2014, there were 578,424 people experiencing homelessness on any given night in the United States. Of that amount of people, California has 113,000, and I don't think people know this.
It's probably
113,952 people that are homeless on the streets, right? And we have children. We have like well-established families, real families, husband, wife, and children living on the streets. So what can we contribute that to here in Los Angeles? My thing is, I think that the cost of living, which is skyrocketing, creates an atmosphere where people cannot afford to buy homes. But the weather, the whole appeal of California,
it's the best place to be homeless.
Well, I would say that Hawaii would probably be the best place to be homeless because it's hot 24/7. Yeah, right. So, what I want to know is, like, from your perspective, 113,000 people that are homeless, and the majority of the people running our California has been Democrats. Do you feel like that is the problem? Because I remember doing a homeless count with Mayor Faulkner back in 2015 in San Diego, and they put billions of dollars in the budget to do the count for the homeless people. Now, we did the count, we were able to give them gift cards to answer the questions we have, but still it seems like nothing is being done with the homeless population. So with you being an active member of society, what is something that you would be able to bring to the table, or something that you want to do to improve the situation?
When you look at the statistics, you'll see that maybe 31% or more of these folks are homeless as a result of jobs. So we have to bring jobs back to our cities.
Okay.
If you think about Los Angeles 30, 40 years ago, okay, when the aircraft industry was much larger, when the electronics industry was much larger, there were jobs. I mean, fathers and mothers got up every morning and drove into factories and plants. There were jobs.
Yeah.
The environment is completely different now.
So when Gavin Newsom raised the taxes, and then he created more taxes, split road tax, payroll tax, and all these different taxes, and it started driving jobs out of California, what is it that's something that we can do to incentivize these jobs to come back? Maybe better jobs to come back, because I know that, President Trump, a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't. I'm very critical of things that he does is very good, and very critical of things that he does that I just totally don't agree with, just from me being in the military. So he created opportunity zones, right? And opportunity zones are something that we've been using to incentivize major corporations, especially the tech industry, knowing that we are moving into a technological age with our younger generations, to bring these jobs back to California, especially the inner cities, so we can be able to provide those quality jobs. So what do you think needs to be done from a democratic standpoint in order to incentivize businesses to come back to California so we can solve one part of this homelessness?
Well, first of all, I think we need to look outside of traditional jobs. The jobs that you mentioned, those I classify as traditional. We have to get non-traditional in terms of who we're trying to attract to come in.
So what's your definition of
Okay,
non-traditional?
non-traditional would be something that we have no longer here, textile industry. Heavy textile industry.
I never thought about
Another industry that is unusual for this country and certainly this state is, say, manufacturers of things like automobile batteries.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you have people like AOC who want to get rid of that industry
Well, I think we
and move completely green.
Yeah, but we need to look at the reality. The reality is, and I'm a Democrat who looks at the world with real glasses on, okay, with real eyes. And I understand that folks want to go green, but it's impossible to go green and maintain the same level of levels of employment and what have you, and productivity that you have to have. So going green is something that I view is happening over a period of time with some great strategic planning in place to make sure that we can do it and transition folks from manufacturing into more green enterprise. Because again, the shock to the Los Angeles area has been the loss of the aircraft industry, the automobile industry. That was all a shock to Los Angeles. And people don't realize how many jobs were actually in those industries, and they're gone now.
So let me ask you this question. So you've been involved in politics as a Democrat for a very long time, right?
Yes.
Why did they remove STEM jobs from our schools, STEM programs from our schools, automotive, general trade jobs?
Well, I think part of the issue is I saw it being involved with this uncontrolled desire to move into technology, okay, without understanding that our children need to learn how to be carpenters. They need to learn how to be masons. They need to learn how to do air conditioning. These are basic job skills that provided serious jobs in the past. And we've kind of kicked all that aside, and we've only damaged the lives of our children.
That's true. Okay, so what I want to do is we're about to take a quick break, but I want to get into homeless prevention. All right, and I appreciate your insight. So you guys stay tuned. Homeless prevention. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna see if we can come to some type of resolve. Stay tuned. Joe Collins for Congress, Real Talk Radio. That was really good.
Good. We got to think outside the box.
Yes.
And it's and we've talked. So
Yeah.
I think you know how I feel about the Democratic Party.
Well, that's good to hear. This is just giving people an opinion.
Yeah.
A two-sided opinion.
Yeah, I've pushed hard to go unconventional forms of industry in order to drive jobs. And you got to think outside that box. You know, Lockheed, who used to be here? McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed,
All of them.
Northrop, everybody was here, so everybody was working.
I think they still here. It's just like people don't know that the jobs exist. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been working with the aerospace industry to create some type of journeyman or apprenticeship program so they can get hired without having to college.
Well, you know, I'll tell you something. When I was in high school, Rockwell International was out, it was opening down.
Oh yeah.
And I can't tell you how many folks I went to high school with who retired from Rockwell.
Oh yeah.
Okay? Because while we were in high school, we had people in our classes who were actually going to Rockwell every day being trained. When they graduated from high school,
They got right to
they had
it.
jobs at Rockwell.
They do that in Texas, but they don't do it out here, which amazes me. Well, whenever we get back on the air, we're gonna go into the graduation rates because we have a 77% high school graduation rate, and we also have a 22% college graduation rate. And we have 82% of the population who graduate from high school or particular college don't have any
There's nothing to do.
employment, and so that's going to segue us into the homeless prevention, and things that we can do to make that happen. And then I have another guest joining us. He actually works in the homeless industry and stuff, so we'll be able to go now. So job loss. I don't want to talk about job loss right now because that's partly due in part to the COVID-19. Job loss, drugs, alcohol use, divorce, separation. No, I know domestic violence has been up since COVID-19, but the majority of these things are true. So what happens to homeless prevention? If you are still tuning in and joining us, I really want to appreciate you for joining this episode. As always, we like to keep God first in our episodes. I apologize for starting to prepare. Before we start this episode, you guys know God is first in our life, and first and foremost for anything. But let's hop back into it. Homeless prevention. We know that we have a 77% high school graduation rate in Los Angeles County. We also have a 22% graduation rate from college in the Los Angeles area. And so that's the reason why that STEM jobs or tech jobs are important to me. Because we already know that people are attempting to go to college. Everyone wants to be successful. It's not some type of like magic trick that success just pops up overnight. You can just go to a tree and pull success like an apple. We don't even have apple trees, but I think we should get some out here. But everybody wants to be successful in their own rights. And with the graduation rate that we have right now for high school and college, I think that it's almost impossible for people in the inner cities to be able to do that. One thing that I don't like is the handouts. Have this, have that, have that. I think that, and a lot of people say this, a lot of conservatives say this, and pull yourself some by your bootstraps and yada yada yada. All of that mumbo jumbo, it sounds really really good to hear, but the actuality is, unless we have opportunities in the inner cities for people to be able to do this, then nobody's gonna be pulling themselves up by anything. You know what I'm saying? How can you tell somebody pull yourself up by your bootstraps when they can't afford shoes? You know what I'm saying? So with our graduation rates that we have right now, one thing that, and this is why I admire Nipsey Hussle, you know what I'm saying? Because he was working to put STEM programs back in our schools and give our youth something to do after school. And right now we know that you don't have anything to do. So when it comes to preventing homeless prevention, knowing that we have a high amount of homeless youth, what is something that you think can be done to prevent the amount of homelessness that we have in our youth?
One thing I think we have to go back and talk about our youngsters is service for our youngsters. We need to design programs specifically for school-aged children. I mean, after-school programs, job readiness training programs. I mean, programs when we talk about pulling up the bootstraps, the question will be pulling up the bootstraps in anticipation of what?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to begin to teach our children about careers, trades, and what have you while they're still in the educational system, so that when they finish that system, they know what direction they're going and they have options. Okay? And that's something that's been pulled out of our schools, and it's something that creates an environment where we have thousands of young men and women who graduate from high school, but they have nothing to do and nowhere to go if they haven't been programmed into college right away. And honestly, the community college system in California is not like the junior college system.
It's not.
Okay. And if you don't know what you're doing, when I came out of high school, all the kids who didn't know what they were going to do, didn't know where to go, they went to Compton Junior College.
Yeah.
And they learned skills, or they prepared to go on to the 4-year college. So we need that. We need that kind of support.
So we'll go ahead and give a shout out to all of our community colleges and junior colleges and universities that we have in California, because we know that you guys are working extremely hard to make sure that our young adults become successful, remain successful, or even fast track them to a career that they want to have. And so we appreciate the work that you guys have been doing with our young people.
Can I add something to that? I don't want to lessen the value of many people organizations like YMCA, WCA, Boys and Girls Clubs. All these extra programs that make services available to kids. And we have to strengthen those programs. Parents, you have to get your children into these after-school programs, into these summer programs. You have to do it.
Yeah. So my thing about this is, when I talk to people, I try to separate the political party preference from the actual person, because people, especially in South LA, they have a tendency of voting because of political party preference without knowing the person who they're actually voting for. And so I say this all the time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. What I mean by that is we've been having the same people sitting in office positions for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and they have gotten extremely comfortable without doing anything for anybody in our communities. And they've made the people in our communities extremely comfortable without having anything. So when somebody brings something to the table and they say, look, you can absolutely accomplish that, because they have been so used to not receiving anything, they think it's far-fetched. Like, no, that's not for us, those are white people. That's for rich people. That's for this, or this is for that. Without understanding that the mindset that has been created by these people who are now running our cities have convoluted the idea of the American dream, have convoluted the idea of the possibilities that people can have within their own lives. And I think that's something that, regardless if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, has to be broken. And it can only be broken by getting involved with new people, having new people represent you. And if you don't like that person, you got 2 years, you go to vote somebody else, and there's nothing wrong with starting over every couple of years. But we're about to take a break right now. We have James Hayes here. He's an acclaimed scientist. He has patents. This guy is very smart, very knowledgeable. When we come back, we're going to continue with homeless prevention. Stay tuned. Real Talk Radio, Joe Collins for Congress.
Don't forget to pin him down.
So look, real quick. So
I can't.
I know it's hard. It's hard. But you can move the mic. That's what I'm telling you.
I'm holding it right here. So
No, just go ahead and move it. You can move it like, if you get, like, go ahead and move it. Because what happens is that when you turn that way or you talk like this, it's getting you, but it's not getting your quality of your voice.
I don't want to lose the vibe. That's why I put it in front of my face right here. And
No, it's not going to pick up your voice on the side.
Oh, well, just only in the front?
Only in the front. Because the reason why is because these mics are made to not get noise from other places. So you want to talk closer to the front as you possibly can. So his is pretty good. When he sits like that and he's talking, he's perfect.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
So I'm the one that's fucked up.
Because you talking to the knob, or you right here.
Okay.
But for the most part, you're good. Just remember, even when you're moving, to just try to talk in front of the mic.
I have another guest coming.
Okay. All right.
He actually worked in the industry, in the homeless industry, so he's supposed to be here in a couple of minutes. It feels good out here. Actually, it's hot inside here.
Is it?
It's feel good out here. It's cool.
Leave the door.
It's all these computers.
Yeah, that's exactly what. I'm gonna get a different type of air conditioner for this one, because this one is too good.
Yeah, I'll readjust our mics, but yeah, mic etiquette is definitely one of those things you gotta learn. Mic etiquette is a learning thing, man. Cause I mean, even with the ones that stand up, people used to like when they read, they'll look down, the mic can be here, then they'll look down and read, and then you can't hear anything they saying. It sounds like they're way in another room. So yeah.
Every time I speak before the city council, Asia adjusts my mic.
Oh, I'm sure.
She does. Everybody, when they see it on television, they say, James, we get very clear. Next speaker is up.
Welcome to politics.
I don't want to. I've been working here all day. I shaved the door off and everything the last couple of days. We just got off
What's
2 weeks
happening?
ago. So I don't want to. Display, ignorance to the police or the crime.
Closing the door is what it was.
Yeah, but you know what? Earlier, before we got started, with the door closed, I could actually feel the air.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You know what I think happens too with these? I think they, after they've been going for a while, they're just not efficient.
They pump out humidity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely feeling the humidity. So yeah, make sure you get your announcement in.
It's a little warm in this room because we got the electronics running.
I got it.
Make sure you get him to get his announcement in.
Okay.
Come on.
He's gonna be on the mic as well?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna scoop. We gotta let Mike know. We gotta adjust the camera. We're gonna scoop this way.
Come in.
Hey, Mike, heads up. We got a third guest coming in. Just heads up. All right, so y'all gonna have to scoot in some more.
How you doing? James Ross.
Scoot in some more. We got about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Scoot in some more. Scoot over some
Oh,
more.
this
Yep.
way, this way.
Oh,
You're-
yeah.
You need this mic over?
You have your headset?
No, that's his mic. That's gonna be his mic over there.
Right here?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's your. This is your.
Joe,
Can you see everybody?
some more? Nope.
What about now?
Adjust the camera. Come over some more. Yeah.
Me?
Come over some more in the middle. James,
some more in the
come
middle.
over some more.
Yes.
No, we need you to come over some more as well, yeah? James, you like pretty much gotta be in the middle. You're the third, yeah, you're the middle guy. There we go. Come in a little bit more, it's gonna be a little tight so we can get you on the shot.
Fish your microphone. Have you want to?
I'll fix it. Yeah.
Back over there.
Go ahead, Joe.
Probably gonna have to hold that.
Okay, that's fine.
You good, Joe. Talk right into it.
All right, you guys, welcome back. Real Talk Radio, Joe Collins for Congress. We have James Hayes here, who's a scientist. Very excited to have him on. Very excited about the conversation that we've been having. But we have another special guest, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. You know what? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. How you doing? My name is James Ross. What do I do? I have a nonprofit. I work for a nonprofit called The Good Scene. We work with homeless youth in the Rampart area. We have a location in Long Beach as well. Entrepreneur, married, 26 years. My son is 24. My daughter's 14. So that's what I do. And we have a business, so entrepreneurship.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you here, and our guests are going to be happy to have you here once we get into this conversation. So we just got off homeless youth, right? And one of the biggest issues that we have with homeless youth is the cost of living. The cost of living is extremely high here in California, which causes whole families to become homeless, right? So you have families who are sleeping in their cars, in RVs, or sleeping in different parts. And the state of California still requires youth under 18 to go to school every single day. So being someone who is involved with the homeless youth, what is something that you see on a daily basis that can be improved, or something that you would like to see improved when it comes to homeless youth? And what do you think is the cause of our youth becoming homeless in Los Angeles?
So that's a very that's a big question. Just like the body has many parts to it.
Yeah.
And so I've been working with the homeless youth for just over a year now. When I first started with the CEO, Jonathan Thompson, it was amazing because at the drop-in center, we were helping at least 30 to 40 kids a day.
What is that center? What is it?
So the drop-in center is where kids can come in, they can eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They can work with an employment specialist. They can take a shower. They can wash their clothes. And we have different other services because we're contracted with the Department of Mental Health. So they come in a couple of times a week, and so we just try to reconnect the kids. And it's a time for them to, especially those that were just coming off the street, right? This is this is their hangout, right?
So when it comes to youth, when we have a huge issue with drug and alcohol
Right.
For adults, is that something that you see in our youth?
Most definitely.
So how can we prevent that?
It's
what do you see with that?
we're living in a culture now where it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with the legalization of marijuana, which I have a big issue with, now I know people that smoke it, right? I got it.
Yeah.
But with the legalization of it, our young people now have access to it. That's like just crazy, right? And so it is those things that they connect with, and in their circle. So now when they go try to get a job, right, other than McDonald's, they can't because they're going to get tested, drug tested.
True.
And so these are some of the things that's causing the barrier, and I call it an invisible ceiling that they can't see, another weight that they don't understand that's going to affect them down the road. By the way, one organization they did drug testing with their youth population, a house that they were working with, and found out that the marijuana that the kid was smoking and they gave it to everybody else, it was laced with heroin.
Wow.
And they tracked it back to the legalized weed shop.
So let me ask you this question. So you know the culture that we live in today. I'm 34 years old, so I teeter-totter okay. All right, so I teeter-totter along between identifying with what the older generation, but also seeing what affects our younger generation. And a lot of black women don't like to hear this. And I say it all the time. I say we as young men need to take personal responsibility for how we look, how we dress, how we act. They always used to have this thing where they says, fake it until you make it. Now, the influences that we have in our community, especially the young community, has been rappers, people who you see in the hood. You have our ballers, our NBA players, NBA players, and things like this. But then you also have the Real Housewives of Hollywood and things of that nature, where this is a fictitious lifestyle that's portrayed on TV. But now we have our young people engaging in this fictitious lifestyle as if it was real. So you have XXX Tentacion, who died of a drug overdose, and you have other rappers who have died from drug overdose. And one thing that is brought to mind is that when you are in school, because I have a 14-year-old daughter, and they told me that she needed ADHD medication, right? And so now it's become a cultural norm to medicate our youth, which segues into stronger drugs. So from both you guys' standpoint, what do you think about it?
Well, I'll say this, and I'll preface it by saying, both of you could be my son until things start.
Oh, that's how it goes.
Okay.
Get a little brother.
But I would say that prescribing meds for ADHD in youngsters now has become the norm. I tell parents not to do it, okay, because what they're prescribing for to the attention deficit in class is when the child fails to pay attention to what's going on in class. That's not a disease. What that is maybe the teacher is not teaching at the speed that your child needs them to teach. Okay? Sometimes the children are ahead of the teacher. I know from experience because I had a daughter who was told the same thing. She's 23 years old now, but they told me the same thing. But as it turned out, she was ahead of the teacher all the time. So because of that, the teacher thought she wasn't paying attention. Well, actually, she was ahead of the teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had to figure out a way to slow her down. And the psychiatrist, well, wait, we want to slow her down. The psychiatrist was a friend, said, take away television. If you take away television, the child's brain is going to slow down.
Yeah.
Okay?
I mean, we're in a culture where information is at the ready. So we got a couple of seconds left. What do you think about that?
So I homeschooled my son. We had an opportunity where we were able to do that. And the interesting thing is when I was going through this process, is he went from a private Christian school to a public school, which it was like, okay, that's not going to work. And he was born premature. He was born at 6 months, and so he does have some development disorder.
Yeah.
But what we found when we got him tested at age 7, on the test questions, Kaiser said it's interesting because on the hard questions he did well on. On the easy questions, he didn't know anything.
That's crazy. All right, you guys, we're about to take a break. We're gonna hop right back into the mental health of our youth. Stay tuned. Joe Collins for Congress. We have James and James. How many more segments do we have? We have one more, right?
Yeah, I'm having 2 hours and 15. I'll be your dad.
You just came on like 30, so
Okay.
And he's the same age as my son.
Okay.
Same age.
This is good. Nobody ever talks about homeless youth or mental illness or drugs with youth. But
Yeah,
you see it on TV on a regular basis.
It's,
So how about the lack of access to regular opportunities that definitely play a role in the fact that our youth are becoming more and more homeless?
That's true.
that's true.
So, 'cause, you know, the whole dynamics of everything have changed. And it's a lot different.
I'm moving back and we're about to start.
But we have to get kids, and I mentioned it earlier before you came, we have to get young people to the after-school program, similar programs like yours.
Right.
They're coming in on a daily basis, and you got to see them and monitor what's going on in their lives, as well as provide some direction for them.
Right.
Okay? We have to have these kinds of programs.
We got 2 more.
Yeah, exactly. And I created that program because I was able to find, their talent.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate you treating me like I'm a stepchild.
All right, but I want to make sure y'all sound good. That's my job. You feel me?
Mr. Roll, need you speaking
Huh?
louder.
Okay.
Just talk right to the mic.
Oh man, yes they are.
They will tell you when you're not speaking.
I appreciate you coming down too, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you can get comfortable.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? There you go.
What with the video feed? What does it look like? The video, the microphone right in his face.
Yeah,
No,
kids
it's
like
cool.
popping up. That's why I'm just holding.
Okay, yeah. You have to, yeah. It's new, you know, it's brand spanking new.
All right, we're back on the phone.
Go. Hot.
All right, you guys, we're coming back. Let's hop right back into it. So when we talk about homeless in our youth and the opportunities that are available or lack thereof, what is it that you think that we can do in order to create more opportunities, or if you know of opportunities and moving our youth involved in,
Right.
do you know of it?
So I think, we have to really begin to think outside the box, right? And because I'm an entrepreneur, when I come into a nonprofit, they think nonprofit goals, right? And so I can come in and say, hey, let's do this in my network, right? And so we come in and do this. And so with that, I was allowed to create a program called THYEM, THYEM, which stands for the Homeless Youth Empowerment Program. And I saw that because many of the kids were singers. They're great graphic artists, right? They got the iPhone, and so they know how to do the camera, but they just need an opportunity. And at the same time, they're in this thing called what I call the survival mode, right? So they're homeless and they're surviving with their friends. So there's an argument that's there, and they don't know how to get out of that because they're watching this is the only way you know how to communicate is to argue back and forth, right? And so I brought in this group and I said, hey, let me mentor you, right, in this area. And so we're going to define your talent, allow my network to come in and show you. And the interesting thing about that, I took one couple to a business source center here in Los Angeles. And I said, I want you to tell your story. Don't be embarrassed about your homelessness because we're going to use this as a platform to jump off of, and it's going to be the greatest thing in your life. And so when we went into the meeting, they met with the COO, and he was asking different questions. And after we left, got back into the car, I said, hey guys, what do you think? And he goes, I never knew anybody helped like that. I said, people in my network help each other, right? So I'm trying to get you out of the culture of that survival mode where you're fighting over crumbs, but we can do something much bigger on a greater scale.
Yeah.
And with that, we've been able to connect with different organizations, bring in a team, and now we're in the process of showing them how to become entrepreneurs, because you can do that over the phone now.
Yeah.
So there's no need for them to, you know, if they struggle with a day-to-day job, which some do, right, then let's find their talent and let's create that, and let us show you how to elevate that and to grow from
Can I
there.
interject a point on that, because you used the term, and we used it earlier, thinking outside the box. And we're talking about stagnated government.
Yeah.
And we can't get government moving until there's new blood and a new way of thinking. And it goes to what you were talking about earlier, politicians feeling, getting to the point where they're entitled to their seats. And when it gets to that point, you get the stagnation, and you're eliminating that breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And that I get excited when someone tells me they're an entrepreneur, they're a business person, and they go to a nonprofit organization and they change the thought pattern. Okay. Same thing needs to happen in government. The same thing needs to happen in government. The thought pattern needs to be changed, because if we do that, then we'll get support for James's programs. We'll get supports for all the other nonprofits that are serving children. But we gotta change that mindset.
But let me ask you a question, right? Because you brought up the term entrepreneur. So a lot of people think that entrepreneur is I'm a small business owner and they actually work in that shop. So when you use the term like entrepreneur, like explain what it is that you mean. Because I know, like, you know, Sam Walton, right? He's an entrepreneur and he has Walmarts all over the place. But I know you have businesses in Leimert Park where the owner actually work into that business, and so you're not necessarily a entrepreneur. You're a person who created a job for yourself.
Entrepreneurship is an active word. When I started my companies as an entrepreneur, it meant that I was always taking actions to grow my companies. Okay, and that's what an entrepreneur is. So be it a small business or a large-scale business, entrepreneurism is an action. You know, you just can't put your shingle up and open the door and say you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
No, you have to work to drive your business. That's what an entrepreneur is.
Now, you really need to have my wife, who's a USC professor, and who teaches entrepreneurship
Okay.
and working with businesses.
I wonder if she thinks I was right.
What
Do you think?
do you think he was right?
You got thumbs up.
Right? So it's an actionpreneur, right? Yeah, the
Actionpreneur,
actionpreneurs.
Hustlepreneur, all that.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it, man. So when it comes to incarceration, right, for the youth, how do you think incarceration contributes to the homeless youth population that we have, since we're on youth time right now?
So that's a different dynamic now, because the kids, they're feeling hopeless, and they're coming out. What is there to do, right? You know, they may not, if they have family, right, where do they go, right? They come into the system, which tells them you got to do X, you know, you got to do this step, this step, this step, but that person may be that kid that's an ADD, and then he gets in trouble, right, and can't stay in the system because they haven't recognized that this kid has a talent. And so now the kid gets kicked out of the system, right? He's on the street, and then he's trying to get his hustle on, selling whatever he's got to do, right? And that's what I see, right? This is what they're telling me.
What about you, Jim?
Well, I think again, to me, it goes to having had a plan for what happens to young people when they come out of incarceration. There has to be a plan in place. We heard a couple of years ago and into last year all about this reentry thing. Okay, where is it? Okay, if kids are coming out of these unit facilities and they're reentering society, where are the services? That's my question. And so that's how I feel about it. We have to program for them and create potential for them, potential jobs and what have you.
Right.
I think as a representative, I think that we need to take more of a proactive step into the reentry process. We'll talk about that once we get back. We're about to take a break. Joe Collins for Congress, Real Talk Radio. We have James and James. Stay tuned.
Good job.
Did I talk louder?
Joe.
Okay.
I have it right here.
Oh, okay.
How much we have to our final segment? How much we have to? We always shut this off.
54.
Huh?
Sorry, no, 54 just happened. Yeah, I'll come back at 54. For 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. I have snacks and everything back here in the refrigerator if you guys.
Oh, yeah, we're good, thank you,
Okay.
though.
All right, cool.
The color.
Yeah, she can tell you all up and down what's happening.
Yeah. So we're broadcasting on CRN. That's the radio network right here. And
Okay.
so it's a digital radio, but it goes all across the country. So we have a huge following across the country. They just don't come to Facebook and watch it. They'll watch it later when I upload it to the website and everything.
Right.
But yeah, so you guys will be across.
Okay.
But nobody ever talks about homeless youth. You know what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah,
it's a good
and
time.
you know what? And it's risen 26% as of last summer
And see, we're on the aircraft carrier right here.
in this area.
Hey, ask him, what's CVN? Is that CVN 76 or
Okay.
78?
You guys,
Hey, Mike, is that CVN 78 or 76 that we're on right now, the aircraft carrier? I think it's 78. Oh, it is 76. Okay. Do we have any guests call in? Okay, cool. Perfect.
If you tell them to call, they will.
I'm gonna tell them about next time.
Yeah, you tell them, you give out that number, and you
So-
tell them they will call.
I created it by late last
Oh, that's the USS Ronald Reagan. That's my favorite.
and we did our
Are you doing it
first
right now?
little entrepreneurship endeavor when Martin Luther King.
How much time we have for the last
because it comes by
segment?
our facility. And so we sold shea butter,
4
and
minutes.
body
4
beans
minutes.
that they actually made.
Almost 5.
Yeah.
Little 4 minutes.
So we did okay. They were a little shy. Right. So we had some hiccups, and so now they are. We connected with a program called Music Forward through House of Blues, and we were actually going to be launching our program with COVID hit. So we're going to try to attempt to relaunch in September. But yeah.
Run down, we got insurance.
You okay?
Choking on the water, man. I'm coming back.
What about you?
We're about to get back on.
Okay.
The music is still great. So I thank everyone who is still on with us for joining in. We have James and James, and I don't know if you can see in the background, but we are on the carrier CVN 76, which is the Ronald Reagan, which is personally one of my favorite aircraft carriers.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so let's get into some military history.
Okay.
Yes. Just kidding. Let's continue talking about homeless. So we talked about the incarceration plans. We talked about the lack of opportunities that we have. One thing that I've noticed when it comes to our youth is they like to go fast. You know, fast cars. The internet's fast. They want the best this, the best that.
Right.
So I was speaking with this one lady at an event that I went to. One thing that she was telling me was that her daughter crashed and died in a car accident. They were racing. So hypothetically speaking, if this was something that we were able to have a racetrack for youth, how do you think that would go? If we take a racetrack and put it by the airport, right? No, seriously. We take a racetrack and put it by the airport, and we allow the youth to utilize the track to race their cars, work on their cars, give them summer jobs, actually keep them actively involved to keep them off the streets. How do you think that would go? And if there is a separate program that you think would work, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. We're in this thing, and we have lack of access, but then there is some access. It's just there's no knowledge to that access. So we're in that. So for example, the county of Los Angeles, within the county of Los Angeles, there's $300 billion worth of contract and procurement opportunities.
Wow.
Right? So many businesses are not aware of this. They're not, right? So now it's taking in, let's say for example, video production. The kids that I know could go get a contract in video production with the county of the city. right? So then, not only can they just go do their contract, so guess what? They can go hire one of their people. So now they have this, this business that's viable, right? So it's just really having the information and then applying the information. I tell the kids all the time, I challenge, I said, do you think knowledge is power? And they go, yeah. And I said, it's not. Applied knowledge, right? Because you can know all you want, right? But if you're not applying any of these things that you are being, that you say you want to do, then you're going to continue to struggle. So there are opportunities out there, and we just have to create programs and model how this can be done, right? And find the talent, and so they can find their talent.
I think the racetrack idea is a great idea.
Exactly.
I think it's a wonderful idea. Of course, there'd be insurance concerns and what have you. You have to figure out how to work it in. But along those same lines, I mean, I understand at the Compton Airport, there's a program where teenagers learn to fly. So a teenager can't street race, but they can learn how to fly a plane.
How come we don't do
Okay,
that?
and good question. A few years ago, a girl got her license at 15. She made her first solo at 16, and I believe now she just got hired on as a pilot with one of the airlines. So see, it's there. But you're right, Joe. We have to make this information highly available.
So go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you. We've got a couple of seconds left.
I'm all over the place.
Do you have a
Where's
social media
Waldo?
handle or a website or something people can like?
I'm working on the website. You can, if you want some information, James at coveredcommunity.org, James at coveredcommunity.org. You can email me if you want to.
Go ahead.
And what you can do to get me, I'm on Facebook, James Hayes. Look me up on Facebook. Also, I have a new website coming, jameshayesformayor.com.
All right, you guys, you heard it yourself, James Hayes and James. So make sure you stay tuned. No, we're about to go home actually. So I gotta kick you guys off my shit. So we're gonna deep six these guys off the USSR the radio, and I appreciate you guys staying tuned. Next week, same time, same channel, Joe Calls for Congress. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. That's great.
All right, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you, man.